No, and all seats are filled, so that tends to indicate.
Sorry, we had apologies from Magic Catherine.
Oh, right, okay.
Ah. Does it still say Magic Catherine though?
I haven't brought my kill.
No, okay.
I'm sorry about that, Liz. We should have informed you, and I thought that we already had. But as you know, we've been down on secretaries for the last couple of weeks, so it's been a little bit of a problem in our office. So
noted, and you have a substitute here.
Yeah, my apologies.
Which is even, we do actually have somebody, which is good, it's good news. Well, no, and I'm not going to make that mistake all night. I'll make others, but I won't make that one. Can I, the minutes of the meeting 2nd of August are in the bundles, can I have those approved, please? There is an additional, we're taking the agenda as published with 2 exceptions. 236 Swakeleys Road was withdrawn from this agenda and transferred to the earlier meeting at the Major Applications Planning Committee. So 236 Swakeleys Road is gone and was approved by the Major Planning Committee earlier tonight. There is an additional late item which is an enforcement matter, so therefore is in part 2 anyway. Apart from that, the agenda we are taking is the one that was presented.
Chairman, excuse me, I'm sorry, but I have to declare an interest in this.
Okay. Can I do it when we come to it because it's in part 2? Do I have any other declarations of interest?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I declare an interest in item 9 and will not be voting on that one.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Usual health and safety and others. Those who are familiar with this meeting will have heard this many times before, but I do it anyway. Fire alarm goes off, no tests are planned, so we're leaving that way or that way. Can I please ask that all mobile phones are switched off or at least silent? In terms of tonight's meeting, we have petitions in respect of items 6, 7 and 8. So petitioners will get 5 minutes to address us, 4 green, 1 amber. When we get to red, that should be enough. On any item where there is a petition, the applicant or their agent has a right to address us. And that is regardless of whether the petitioner speaks or not. Ward councillors have a right to address us, but I am aware that no one from East Coder East Ruislip is coming tonight, and I do not believe anybody from Ickenham is coming tonight, so I believe we will not have any ward councillors. The voting members of Planning Committee tonight, and I'll start the other way around just to vary it. We'll go Councillor Dillon, Councillor Morse, Councillor Oswald, and coming down this side, I have got Councillor Morgan, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Jushu, Councillor Flynn, and Councillor Graham. Manmahan Ranger is doing highways. Ed Otang is presenting tonight. Ed is new to, certainly here on the north, is currently our major applications manager. His first time presenting to us. James Roger, the head of planning, is here. Liz Penny from Democratic Services, and Nicole Cameron is our legal advisor. That's all the preliminaries done. I'm going to move straight to item 6, which is 52 Field End Road, Eastcote Pinner. Ed, when you're ready.
Good evening, Chair and members. Thank you. If we could go to the slides. This is an application for the erection of a 2-storey, 3-bed detached dwelling and the conversion of 52 Field End Road into one bed and 1 2-bed self-contained units involving a single-storey rear extension with associated parking and amenity space. The proposal entails the demolition of the existing garage. I'd like to take members and chair to the slides, and what you have here is the location plan showing the subject site property in question, and another plan that shows some of the constraints identifying the listed heritage structures around the site and surrounding, adjoining the site and its surrounding. And you have another plan, a location plan. A block plan, and these are the elevational details. We run through another set of elevational details. Okay. So the erection for the proposal is, as mentioned, for a detached dwelling to the rear of the existing property, and officers have set a summary for refusal, and that would be the recommendation here. Any questions?
No addendum, are we okay? Yep, good. Okay, Jackie Redrup, you are presenting petition and objection. You have circulated a photo on this one with a view from 20 the Cygers, which planning officers are not raising any objection to. So, could you, you know the routine, if you press the microphone in the middle when you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chairman and committee members, for allowing me to speak on this application on behalf of the concerned residents. Whilst we are really pleased to see that the case officer has recommended refusal overall, and indeed the reasons given for that refusal, we are concerned on two issues that I would like to address here, as if this application were to go to appeal, I'm sure you're going to agree with me that we would want to present the strongest possible case. Firstly, we see that Liz Arnold has stated that she does not regard loss of privacy for those in the Cygers properties as a reason that can be used for refusal relating to what I'm calling the garden house. As one who has stood at number 20 the Cygers, a first floor flat, in the kitchen window, and looked across at the very position in the garden where this property would be positioned, it seems to me that this is very much an issue, or at very least that Cyger residents will have a real perception of being overlooked, and indeed of overlooking the residents of the new garden property. Thus, there would be no private amenity space for the new dwelling either. Liz Arnold details the distance between the garden house and the Cygers properties is approximately 21 metres in her report. As we all know, this is the minimum distance recommended for the space between properties to mitigate the possibility of overlooking, and therefore of itself would suggest that this should be part of a reason for refusal. Our second concern is that the report states that the changes to the existing houses to two properties are acceptable in all regards. Our previous concerns, as shown in the consultation section of the report, still very much stand in their entirety, and we'd like to add that consideration should also be given to the fact that this is another site where a 4-bedroomed family house will be lost to yet another 1- and 2-bedroom properties that are proliferating in our area at the expense of larger houses these days. We ask that you uphold the recommendation for refusal, and in doing so, would be willing to take a few moments to review the issues that I've raised, to see if further sound planning reasons for refusal can be added to the decision notice. Thank you for your time, and we do thank Liz Arnold for the time that she has spent on the report.
Okay, I'll pick up the two specifics. Do members have any other questions? Thank you very much indeed. Anyone here on behalf of the agent or the applicant? If you press the red button on the middle when you're ready, if you just state your name for the clerk's record, because we haven't got it marked at this end.
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the applicant, Neil Richardson. It appears to me that the division of the existing property into two smaller units does meet the requirements of the authority, and therefore I want to concentrate on the question of the new build. The summary in the Head of Planning's report implies a number of negative aspects to the scheme. However, at the site meeting during the pre-application process, the position and style of the potential new build was actually proposed by the planning officer. Further, both of the pre-applications that have been submitted have stated that there is no objection in principle to either the subdivision of the existing property nor to the new build. That's in fact on page 4 of the pre-application response that we had from the planning officer. One of the primary concerns raised is the backdrop to the listed Tudor Lodge Hotel. I fully appreciate concerns for the main building in that regard, but perhaps less so for the annex and outbuildings and car park, which border our site and are of no architectural merit. There is a row of mature trees on the boundary with the hotel and scope for further planting to increase that density. Our proposed building will be further away from the hotel than the existing hotel annex, and to some extent the trees will shield both buildings. A full arboricultural survey has been submitted, and that clearly identifies that the works involved could be completed without any damage to the trees. For neighbours, we feel that there is no greater loss of privacy and overlooking than we currently experience in the use of our existing garden. Another objection that's been raised is that the development will be detrimental to the street scene and open aspect. Removal of the garage will actually open up the view in the street scene even more, and the drawings clearly show that there are no substantial changes to the exterior of the existing building which faces the road. In conclusion, my reasons for embarking on this project are to provide a more sustainable mix of housing and accommodation for my family, who otherwise would be driven away from the area in which they've always lived, been brought up, gone to school, etc., and being driven away by rising house prices. By providing 2 additional housing units, I feel I'm meeting that objective. Thank you.
Do members have any questions? Okay. Thank you for that. I'll pick up the head of planning in a moment. All I would say is, it's all right, if you feel that the report we have to consider is the one that is before us, it's the same statement I make on numerous occasions. If you feel that obviously any pre-app advice that you've got, is different to that, then that is a matter for complaints and outside of this meeting. I have to, and my committee have to take the head of planning's considered view, having done all matters. James, could you pick up on the Privacy 21, the conversion, and any other matters?
Sorry, I must apologise. It shouldn't have said approximately. The 21 metres is definitely met in this case. So the resultant effect of the 21 metres being met is that the dwelling is very close to the boundary with the trees, and you'll see from, I've deliberately put this slide up, a large tree to the left-hand slide, because that's the rear of the application site. And these trees have a very important status in screening what would potentially be any development from the Grade 2 listed hotel building, and therefore it's quite important to consider the setting of this Grade 2 listed building. In regard to the point that the applicant said, what I do know is that through the pre-application advice process there wasn't an arboricultural report, and what that arboricultural report, which is part of this application, tells us is that there are substantial root systems that extend into the rear garden, and that by putting a dwelling very close to the boundary with the Tudor Lodge Hotel to achieve the 21 metres, you heavily encroach on those root systems. If you look at both the council's tree officers and conservation officers' comments, effectively you've got the tree officer saying they're concerned about impact on the root systems, and the conservation officer saying if you lose those boundary trees, you're going to have an adverse impact on the Grade 2 listed building, combined with the fact that this is obviously a backland development proposal. With respect to the subdivision, officers do not consider there's any reasons this could be refused. It's policy compliant. The additions, just to clarify them, are a side door and a small single-storey rear infill extension that sort of fills in at the back between those gables you can see in the photo. That particular element is described in more detail in the report, but there is not a substantial addition being made, nor are there any changes to the front elevation of the property. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So I think the head of planning is very clearly saying he doesn't believe there are any additional refusal reasons that can be added to this, and he does believe that the reasons as set out in the report are sound, in accordance with the advice given, with the benefit of the knowledge of the trees. Yes, that's my summary. Anybody got any other questions? Councillor Higgins.
I have no questions. I'll just move with officer's recommendation.
Oh, thank you. No, you were beaten by your colleague, were you? All those in favour of refusal, please clearly show. Thank you. That one's refused. Right, I now move on to 197 Field End Road, Eastcote. Adrian, you ready?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just get up the slides for that. Okay. So item 7 on your agenda, Chair and members, is a retrospective planning application for the retention of roller shutters along the frontage of this shop set in the Modest Parade along Field End Road. And it also includes an external shopping trolley area and empty boxes area within the confines of this shutter. So up for you is a location plan showing the site. And you have another plan which effectively shows the constraints with regards to the close proximity of the application site to heritage assets locally listed, and also its close proximity to the conservation area. We have another location plan, and these are elevational details for the retrospective application. An aerial view of the site, and these are pictures that show you the side and parts of the rear of the application site before the erection of those structures that is before you for your consideration today. And as you can see, at the junction, Field End Road, there is nothing there. Footpath is clear. You've got railings effectively containing pedestrian flow. Again, at the side, you can see what was existing. And now you have a clear illustration of what's there now. And this is what is being proposed as a retrospective submission. The yellow shutters. So, thank you, Chair, that's it.
I think we can see what they are.
Thank you, Ed. Jackie, I think you're back again.
Would I be allowed to ask a question?
The process, which is good.
Well, once again, I thank you for allowing me to speak. On this one particularly, because of the considerable number of concerned residents there have been, we have a petition of 213 people, and I believe at the time of the date of report there were already 50 letters of objection. Again, we're pleased to see that the case officer has recommended refusal and has cited the reasons that reflect our objections. That additional reason, that addendum, is very good news as well. I don't feel, therefore, that I need to go into great further detail here in some respects, as Maria Tomalova has clearly shown the inappropriate nature of the colour, size and bulk of the shutters in her report. The report does mention the use of the storage area behind the shutters as being for shopping trolleys and empty boxes. However, the reality has been that food, both perishable and otherwise, and other consumables have been stored there. When they are open, and they are open almost all day, every day, this storage area is exposed, and the shutters positioned right on the boundary with the footpath lead to overspill onto the public pavement of anything from the boxes to the food and the trolleys. And as the addendum has now highlighted, this causes health and safety issues for all pedestrians passing around this entire corner and when they are trying to cross the road at what is a very busy controlled pedestrian crossing. This is further compounded by those handling the items in the area having to work from and on the pavement to move the goods around. This leads me to the front elevation and side elevations of the shop. It's also photos that I've sent passed round, which again show more pictures than you've seen there of all of the elevations. And my question, which I hope I'll get in the 5 minutes, which is I had understood that this application, if I've not misread it, was solely for the shutters on the side and the storage area behind. I felt I heard you say that it was actually also for the shutters at the front. I am now going to refer to them anyway. And we felt it wasn't included in the application, so we didn't put it in our submission. However, the highways officer and the conservation officers are referred to as having mentioned them in the report. And so I want to pick up on that. Again, they're bright orange, bulky shutters. Then the shop front glazing has been removed and perishable food items are displayed at the boundary edge with the pavement. Customers have to stand on the pavement to choose their items. Shopping trolleys are used and discarded. And, of course, the shop front shelves have to be filled from the payment. I mention this because it further exacerbates the same health and safety issues that I've detailed above. And, of course, we also have potentially unacceptable unapproved signage, which, again, the two officers do mention. We are in complete agreement with the two officers' comments. Finally, and you may consider this a very minor consideration in the grand scheme of this rather contentious application, but I would add that this site is situated in a primary shopping area that stretches from Abbotsbury Gardens to North View, i.e. not a secondary area, as stated in the officer's report. Also, 197 is attached to the locally listed Devon Parade that runs from 177 to 195, something not mentioned at all in the report. We do thank Maria Tomalova for her report and indeed enforcement for the action that they have taken and is ongoing. This application has aroused a great deal of public interest and an unusually large number of objections, which we know have led to a great deal of work from a number of other departments as well, and we'd like to take this opportunity of thanking all concerned for their input. We trust that you will uphold the recommendation for refusal, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sorry, we're caught checking something. Does anybody have any questions? I'm just seeking clarification from the Head of Planning as to exactly what we are dealing with. You might have guessed that, those who can work out what we're doing. We'll do that in a moment. Is there anyone here on behalf of the agent or the applicant for this one looking to speak? No. I will hold just whilst I get clarification of
Can we to explain how I think we should deal with this?
yeah, I was hoping for a little guidance. That was where I was,
The applicant's submission isn't crystal clear. So, for instance, what they call the front elevations, in fact, the side elevation. However, in cases that, dare I say, involve enforcement, it's not uncommon for the plans to be unclear sometimes that's unintentional, sometimes it's intentional, but normally what we do is we add an informative to explain exactly what we've dealt with at the end of the process. I'm told in this case that the forms imply that all of the shutters, front and side, are being considered, but the plans are annotated as front elevation, but only show the side elevation. That's the elevational treatment, and then the location plan implies it's both the front and the side.
Okay. Right, I think I get that, hopefully. This site has a complex history. Can I remind members, please, that we've looked at enforcement on this site in the past. You need to consider this as a retrospective application on its merits. You also are considering the shutters alone and no other matters. We will take the Head of Planning's guidance. I think that the informative should be included that we have looked at all of the shutters. Yes? Is that what you were suggesting?
I don't know whether the applicant's going to speak. It may be...
No, he hasn't. I've got nobody here, so nobody indicated.
Okay, right.
But we'll have the informative saying that we were refusing the lot, if
I
that's
think
what
because
members
the
now do.
forms imply that it's the shutters per se.
Okay.
We'll
do it on that basis.
I think it would be easier dealt with on that basis.
Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, with that in mind, I mean, the summary of the report just about says it all, really. It's contrary to a number of policies, and the officer's report is good. It's a solid report, and I'll move the officer's recommendations.
I spotted Councillor Higgins next, so
I will second that.
Does anybody want to add anything? No? Good. In that case, subject to the informative explaining we have considered all of it, all those in favour of refusal, please clearly show. Thank you very much. That one's refused. I move on to 88 Long Lane, Ickenham, which is agenda item 8.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to get the slides up for you. This is an application for the demolition of the existing dwelling house and erection of a three-storey building to provide 9 self-contained units, a flatted development. So, item 9, you have the location plan. Sorry, item 8, forgive me. Location plan. Another plan showing the constraints in terms of conservation area and listed structures adjoining the application site. Another location plan. And we come to a series of floor plans and roof plans, elevational plans, existing, proposed. An aerial view of the site and the subject property. That's along the drive. Yep. Chair, the officer's recommendation is that members approve the application proposal.
Okay. There is a petition on this one. Phil Dalton? Sorry.
If I could add, there is an addendum item that refers to paragraph 7.01 of the officer's report to note that number 66 Long Lane, redevelopment of the site to provide 7 flats, has recently been completed but is yet to be occupied. Nevertheless, the proposal continues to meet the 10% threshold test. And the officer's addendum further clarifies that the proposal retains a gap of at least 2.9 metres to the rear and 5 metres to the front between number 88 and 90 Long Lane. The proposed building does not project out further to the rear than the existing building at number 90 Long Lane. As such, officers do not consider the proposal would result in overshadowing or detrimental harm to the amenity of the occupiers at number 90 Long Lane.
Jill Dalton? If you press the red button when you're ready.
Good evening. I'm Jill Dalton, Chairman of the Ickenham Residents Association, which represents some 3,000 plus paying member households within Ickenham. We thank you for the opportunity to address our concerns to you directly, even though we have already submitted reasons for our objection. Specifically, we would wish to refer now to the following areas. Precedent in the Ickenham Conservation Area. This area of Long Lane has been designated as conservation area specifically to preserve the character and appearance of the dwellings and the resulting street scene. Whilst we appreciate that the developer has taken care to ensure that the frontage of the proposal has similarities to the existing home, approval of the plans would set a precedent for flats to be built along this stretch of the conservation area, possibly with less sympathetic designs. We would have hoped that the inspector's decision for signature care homes would have given strength to our conservation officer's resolve to protect our conservation area, but unfortunately that is not proving to be the case. It is just so important that the open gardens associated with large detached houses typical of this area be preserved. Once lost, they will be gone forever. On footprint and overdevelopment within the conservation area, again, it is inappropriate to propose a building with a footprint of 3 times the size of the existing home within the conservation area. We feel that this is overdevelopment of the site and detrimental to neighbouring properties. The depth and size of the proposed development is fundamentally tantamount to a backland development which is against stated objectives and policies. On traffic and parking impact, this proposed development will undoubtedly increase traffic flow in an already overcrowded road and proposes 1 parking space within the curtilage of the property for each of the proposed 9 flats. If all the residents had cars, that could be 20 to 30 cars. The Residents Association have been made very aware of the significant access and traffic problems encountered by neighbours to the flatted developments in Swakeleys Road. Many of the flat occupiers have 2 cars per flat, so that their cars are often parked inconsiderately around neighbouring houses, causing disputes and discontent when homeowners have no space for their cars or those of visitors, carers or maintenance workers. You'll see that many of the petition signatories are Long Lane residents, conscious of those very problems and who are reluctant to invite those issues into their surrounding roads. In conclusion, we trust that you will reject this inappropriate development that may well begin the destruction of Ickenham's important conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thanks for the petition. Can I ask you, are there any other developments like this in Long Lane that you're aware of in this conservation area and in the area that you represent?
Not in this particular part of Long Lane, although of course, as already referred to, 66 Long Lane was eventually given permission about 2 years ago or something like that. Perhaps more, perhaps longer ago than that. And
that one's just been completed. Yeah.
It's been about 6 months been completed, I think. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Thank you for your position. Are there anyone here on behalf of the agent or the applicant? Thank you. If you'd state your name for the record as you begin to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Chris Barrett. I'm the joint owner of the property. I'd like to begin by using this opportunity to answer the 3 main concerns that are raised in this petition before you. Firstly, I believe that the increase in the depth of the building is acceptable, as the existing building is disproportionately small on such a large plot, especially when compared to the neighbouring properties. In fact, it doesn't pass the rear building line at all. As the proposed building is only 1 metre wider than the existing building, and there are no extra overlooking windows, no objections was raised by the next door neighbour. Secondly, this would be the only development of flats on this part of Long Lane, therefore not breaching the 10% guidelines set out in the Hillingdon Design and Access Statement. And as each planning application has to be decided on its own merits, no precedent for further similar developments can be set. The third point is referencing an appeal decision that bears no similarity to this proposal at all. It refers to a care home scheme that would have seen a building over 3 times the size of this proposal, spread over 5 houses and their gardens. Our scheme has been the subject of 2 pre-application meetings with your planning, conservation and tree officers, which has led to several revisions of the plans to take on board their opinions. The design of the building, as can be seen in the CGI provided, has deliberately replicated the mock Tudor style of the existing building. And on the advice of the conservation officer, we have stepped in the rear half of the proposed building. So this, combined with the fact that the large oak and other mature trees on the site are to be protected, will make it virtually impossible to see the increased depth of the building from the road. We believe we have achieved a positive addition to the street scene. In fact, even the petitioner's letter states that the proposal has been presented with a very pleasant frontal design. If planning is granted, these flats will be included in the government's Help to Buy scheme, which will help first-time buyers, therefore adding some desirable housing stock to the area. Thank you.
Do members have any questions? Oh, Councillor Higgins.
No, sorry, I don't.
No, you don't know. Okay, that's sorry. You were too quick there, you see. No, thank you very much indeed. Right, I will open Councillor Higgins. I think you did have a question for us.
Yeah, go on. Two points actually. The tree protection, obviously there's that lovely magnificent tree. Obviously in the previous application we had about root systems. I mean, I want to know whether that's actually been here. And it doesn't say that this tree is actually a TPO, which I find surprising, but can officers tell me about that? And the second thing is that if we are mindful to approve this application, I don't, maybe it's me, and I don't see here that materials will come back to making sure that it isn't kept with the conservation area.
I think materials is in condition 3 and is actually more detailed than normal.
Yeah. Okay.
Including mock Tudor timber detailing and all sorts of bits. I did look for that when I was checking this, and I thought
it sort of follows over 3 pages.
Yeah. So I think the material, I think the conservation officer's material concerns are in there.
There's a particular reason I'm going to respond rather than Ed, because in many of these meetings, applicants refer to pre-application meetings, and meetings I don't personally attend, but I've actually attended a meeting on this application. So I'm slightly better placed than I often am to comment directly on particular aspects. So that tree at the front is a TPO tree, and the building is set back a substantial distance from that tree, so there's no adverse impacts on that tree. There is actually a beech tree in the grounds of Dewey Martyrs, and it was that tree that was actually causing some concern, but the proposals got revised, and the council's tree officer was heavily involved in quite a number of sort of plan changes and worked with an arboriculturist to get the scheme correct with regard to that tree that's, as I say, within the grounds of the Dewey Martyrs off-site. With respect to this issue about a much larger property, I would refer members to page 50 in the site location plan. So, as you've heard both speakers say, that I don't think anyone's got any concerns about the front elevation proposed. The depth is raised as an issue, but number 88 Long Lane is a fraction the size of some of the surrounding property. So by increasing the depth, you just need to look at the footprint of number 90, and I'd be very surprised if even this proposed block of flats is as big as the footprint of number 90, albeit I'm aware that number 90, parts of that are single storey, so it's not all 2-storey. But certainly in that regard, I'm quite comfortable with the footprint proposed, and as has been explained, this is within the 10% rule, so on the principle.
Yeah, on the 10% rule, we are quite under that at the moment, aren't we?
So there was an error that's been corrected in the addendum that we had missed 66 Long Lane, but effectively it's 66 plus number 88, and there you're only 2, so we are well under 10%.
Councillor Oswald?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. That's the reason I asked the petitioner about other flatted development. It was regarding the 10%, but that's been covered anyway, but I thought that it didn't breach that. I'll move the officer's recommendation, Chairman.
You seconding?
I'll second it.
Nobody else is indicating. All those in favour of approval, please clearly show. Thank you, that one's approved. I now move to item 9, 35 Swakeleys Road, Ickenham. Councillor Flynn is going to not vote or take part in this one.
Thank you, Chair. The application on item 9 is for a change of use of an existing vacant A2 to a mixed A1, A3 coffee shop involving amendment to the shop front door and associated signage. And if I call up the location plan for you, Chair, members, the site's clearly identified there. And again, you have a constraints map that shows you constraints in the conservation area and listed structures adjacent and surrounding the site. Location plan again, and this is effectively a floor plan of the existing, and this is the floor plan that's being proposed. What you have now is a shopfront treatment proposed, an aerial view, and a couple of pictures showing you the side of the subject building. Again, side and part of the rear and side, complete rear, and the current front of the building there. The recommendation for members and chair is that officer's recommendation be accepted and approved.
There is an addendum for, well, it isn't actually now in the addendum, but food informative, I think.
Sorry, if I can just add on standard food hygiene in informative. Obviously, the key issue here, it's not a loss of an A1, it's a loss of an A2, so there isn't a policy objection.
I've got Councillor Dillon, he hasn't said anything so far. Does anybody have anything else to add before we do that? Okay, in that case, Councillor Dillon.
Just very quickly, I like things like this where clearly that's been derelict for a while. Let's just get it back into circulation, shall we? Just worth pointing that out.
Are you seconding off the recommendation?
I will also
second. To do that. Okay, all those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you. That one's approved. Item 10 was withdrawn from this agenda. We move to item 11, which is Pembroke House, 5 to 9 Pembroke Road, Ruislip.
Thank you, Chair. Item 11 is a proposal for an extension at roof level to create one 2-bed unit with a wraparound. The proposal has no indication or little indication of the information to support the application in terms of its use for existing car park and how car parking demand from the proposed development would be met or satisfied by this submitted scheme. If I take you to a location plan showing the site, again with the constraints, site plan. And what you have here is the proposed layout, the existing, and details of the elevational treatment at roof level. An aerial view, and a few pictures showing you the access to the site. And that's the rear side, and this is the roof. Thank you, Chair. The recommendation is that members accept the recommendation put forward by officers.
To refuse.
To refuse, yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I actually remember this coming before, almost word for word, when they wanted Pembroke House redeveloped, and we said at the time it was too high. I see no change. I'll go with the officer's recommendations.
Councillor Oswald?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll second it.
All those in favour of refusal, please clearly show. That one's refused. I move to item 12, which is a single-storey building at the Middlesex Stadium. Perhaps I would suggest that if you just put the plans and photos up of this one, 'cause it looks fairly straightforward.
Straightforward, Chair. As you can see, it's within the green. Yeah, and that's a location plan. The changing room as existing and as proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Move the officer's recommendation.
Seconded. That was good, guys. All those in favour of approval, thank you. That one's done. Item 13 is a TPO tree. You're being asked to confirm a TPO order.
A TPO order, Chair, for members to confirm. The subject tree is an attractive local landscape feature that contributes to local amenity and arboreal character of the local area. You have a location plan.
We'll have a look at the tree, I think.
Yeah, and we'll go. That's view. This is an indication of how. There you go, Chair.
Go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Anybody want to say anything on this one other than no? It's a tree. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That one is approved. Councillor Oswald is leaving us at this point in the proceedings and gets to go home slightly earlier than everybody else. But it won't be much earlier, I doubt. Can I ask, please, for the live feed to be turned off and the confirmation that's been done?